As a fire smoldered beneath a wooden escalator at King's Cross Station, no one ran. Some didn't even notice. Others stepped over it without a second thought. It didn't behave like fire was supposed to. Then, without warning, everything changed. Heat built beneath the incline, and suddenly, the fire shot straight up. Not slowly, but instantly, and violently. In a single heartbeat, a crowded commuter station became a rising inferno. It was the evening of November 18, 1987, a cool autumn day in London. King's Cross St. Pancras Station, the junction point for several underground lines, was packed with people finishing work, heading home, or transferring between services. The station itself was a labyrinth of tunnels and passageways, 5 major lines converging underground, with escalators leading down into deep-level tubes with corridors crisscrossing above. At around 7:30 p.m., a seemingly innocuous event set everything in motion. A traveler dropped a lit match down the side of a wooden escalator that served passengers heading toward the Piccadilly line platforms. Though smoking on trains had been banned for years, enforcement had been lax, and discarded matches or cigarettes were not uncommon. In the narrow void beneath the escalator steps, grease, dust, and litter had accumulated over time. These combustible deposits provided plenty of fuel for a fire to ignite. Investigators later concluded that the match fell onto this buildup and smoldered out of sight. At first, station staff saw what looked like a minor fire and judged it to be relatively unthreatening. Even firefighters initially described the visible flame as about the size of a large cardboard box. But beneath the surface, heat was building. The escalator's incline and the narrow space beneath it trapped the hot gases and flames, forcing them to move up the slope rather than simply rising. Investigators later identified this as the trench effect. When fire is confined in a sloped, narrow space, heat and flames can surge forward like a wave, building speed and intensity until they erupt violently. This phenomenon, not understood at the time, would become central to explaining the disaster. About 15 minutes after ignition, at around 7:45 p.m., a sudden and dramatic transformation occurred. Heat and superheated gases reached what's called a flashover. In an instant, a wall of flame and thick black smoke erupted up the escalator and into the ticket hall above. The eruption of fire and smoke left commuters and staff in panicked disbelief. What had seemed like a small problem had become a deadly inferno. Dense smoke, hotter than most may have realized, began to fill passageways, obscuring exits and cutting off sightlines. Passengers fled in every direction, some forced back by smoke, others blindly searching for exits they could no longer see. Staff attempted to direct people out of the station, but conditions deteriorated so fast that it became a life-or-death wild scramble. The London Fire Brigade responded quickly. More than 150 firefighters and over 30 fire engines were dispatched to the scene. Fire crews entered the smoke-choked station, relying on limited light, inadequate communication equipment, and minimal training specific to underground fires. Thick, black smoke and scorching heat made every step a battle. Among those who bravely entered was Station Officer Colin Townsley, one of the first on scene. He and his team fought their way into the ticket hall to assist those trapped and injured. In the end, Townsley would lose his life in that station below ground, found beside a badly burned passenger, attempting to help them escape. His sacrifice was later described as heroic by the official inquiry. When the fire was finally under control, hours later, the toll was sobering. 31 people had died, including commuters and Station Officer Townsley. More than 100 others were injured by burns, smoke inhalation, or the crushing, desperate rush for safety. Many of those who perished did not die from flames alone. Toxic smoke and superheated air claimed victims before flames could reach them, making evacuation even more urgent and dangerous. The struggle to identify all the victims took years. One man, long known only by his mortuary tag as Body 115, wasn't identified until 2004, when forensic advances finally allowed his family closure. In the months that followed, a public inquiry chaired by Sir Desmond Fennell assembled testimony and evidence from survivors, firefighters, police, underground staff, and technical experts. The inquiry's findings were stark. What had started as a seemingly small fire had turned into a catastrophe due to a combination of factors that should have been foreseen and mitigated. Most damningly, the report criticized London Underground management for complacency about fire risks. Because the network had never experienced a fatal fire before, Staff were accustomed to dealing with small, smoldering incidents rather than major flare-ups. Training on evacuation and fire response had been minimal. Communication between station staff and responding fire crews was piecemeal and inefficient. Radios were not compatible, and in the rapidly degrading conditions underground, crucial information was lost or delayed. One of the inquiry's most important revelations was the trench effect itself. Before King's Cross, engineers and firefighters did not fully understand how heat and flames can funnel up an incline, intensifying fire beneath a structure like an escalator. Scale models and computer simulations run during the inquiry reproduced the trench effect and confirmed that the escalator's wooden steps and accumulated debris acted as a conduit for heat and superheated gases, feeding the eventual flashover. This understanding would shape future fire safety engineering not just in London, but worldwide. The repercussions of King's Cross fire were sweeping and lasting. The inquiry made 157 recommendations to improve fire safety on the underground. Among the most significant were a total ban on smoking throughout the entire underground system, including stations and escalators, 5 days after the fire. Second, removal and replacement of wooden escalators with fire-resistant metal ones. Some wooden escalators remained into the 2000s before complete replacement, with the final wooden escalator removed in 2014. Third, installation of heat and smoke detectors, sprinkler systems, and fire suppression systems across stations to detect and fight fires early. And lastly, overhauls of staff training, evacuation procedures, and emergency communications to ensure coordinated response in crises. For those who lived through the night, the fire was more than a statistic. Commuters recalled the chaos, the choking smoke, the desperate search for exits, and the sudden eruption of flames. First responders recalled fear, confusion, camaraderie, and heartbreak. Firefighter Dave Flanagan, one of the crew at the scene, later described the devastation: charred walls, scorched ticket machines, and the overwhelming sense that people were trapped and out of time. Families of victims, survivors, and emergency personnel continue to meet on anniversaries, honoring those lost and reflecting on the lessons learned. Services and memorials at the station ensure that the lives taken are not forgotten. Beyond the immediate reforms to the London Underground, the King's Cross fire catalyzed broader changes in public transport safety thinking. Fire-resistant materials, hazard accumulation monitoring, and integrated communication systems became priorities in transit systems worldwide. In the decades since, the Underground has had 0 fatal fires, a stark testament to the hard-won lessons of that night. The impact of the King's Cross fire resonates far beyond November 18, 1987. It changed how transport networks approach risk. It taught emergency services new lessons about subterranean fire behavior, and it reminded the public that even everyday spaces can harbor unseen dangers. That small flame beneath a crowded escalator became a defining moment in public safety history. Lives lost, lessons learned, reforms enacted. The King's Cross fire stands as proof that systems can only be as safe as the vigilance and care we put into them. Today, as millions ride the London Underground without fear of fire, that legacy endures, not as a distant tragedy, but as a guardian of the future. Thank you everybody for watching. I make new videos every week, so if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'd appreciate the support.